of children are being denied an education and robbed of a future. This is mostly the case for Hasidic boys' yeshivas, and to a lesser extent in some Hasidic girls' schools and to other Orthodox Jewish boys' schools. On average, Hasidic boys ages 13 and under receive only 90 minutes of secular instruction, and generally only in basic English and math. No science, no social studies, and so forth. The secular subjects are often taught by unqualified teachers and taken very not seriously. Secular studies generally begins only at 3:30 p.m. and goes till about 5 p.m. So we're only talking about 90 minutes at the end of the day after a full day of Judaic studies. After the age 13, most Hasidic boys receive no secular education at all. They spend 12 to 14 hours a day in yeshiva from as early as 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. and study exclusively Judaic studies like Torah, Talmud, Halacha, and so forth. No English, no math, no science, no social studies, none of those basic subjects. And remember, the language that's spoken is Yiddish at home, in the synagogue, at the supermarket. So boys really don't have an opportunity to even learn the basic language. The result of this is catastrophic. The poverty in the Hasidic community is skyrocketing. When boys get older, they become adults, and they want to go out there and earn a living, they have a hard time getting employment, because what job will accept you without even a high school diploma or a GED? The poorest, according to the census, the poorest village in the United States is Kiryas Joel, which consists of 100% of Hasidic people. I'd urge you all to think about what it would mean for you if you didn't get that basic education. Would you be able to be here and do what you're doing? So several years ago, we began raising awareness about this. We spoke to city and state education officials and asked them to intervene. At the time, there was a law, Article 65, Section 3204, which required non-public schools to provide an education that is substantially equivalent to public schools. That same law went on to say that non-public schools must teach English, math, science, social studies, music, and art, and so forth. The New York State Education Department guidelines, which elaborated on the law, were very clear. There was never a question about what non-public schools must teach. In a Q&A format, it said what subjects must be taught in non-public schools. And in grades 1 to 6, it's arithmetic, English language, reading, spelling, writing, music, geography, and so forth. Later, the Q&A says, what is the requirement as to the length of the school day in a non-public school? And it said it should be approximately 5 hours to 5.5 hours of secular studies, depending on elementary and high school. These guidelines were very clear. There was never a question about what they require of non-public schools. But neither of these guidelines, neither the guidelines nor the law were enforced for decades. And in fact, many government officials didn't even know they existed, one of whom is actually the mayor of New York City. At a unrelated press conference, he was asked by a reporter about this issue in 2015, and he said something, the reporter said he was visibly confused, and he said something like, I'm not sure I get you, because obviously they're a separate system. They're a separate system, but they still need the city's oversight. Then the city promised an investigation into this. And after time went by, we realized that the city has no intention of really following through and taking it seriously. So they've turned to the state and asked for more guidance on how to implement the law. So the Regent's Chancellor, Betty Rosa, instructed the Commissioner, Mary Ellen Ilya, to revise the guidelines and to clarify how the city and other local districts should go about enforcing the law. We weren't happy with the guidelines being revised because we thought they were very clear, and the excuse that, oh, they're not clear, was just that, it was an excuse. Furthermore, as the state set out to revise those guidelines, they turned to non-public school representatives for help in revising those guidelines, right? That's like having the wolves watch the hen house. And they didn't include us in the process, which we found very troubling. But to their credit, they did rely on our report, which is available on our website, to gain some insight into our views on this issue. But, and despite getting input from the yeshiva leaders, and despite being involved in the process, the yeshiva leaders were still not happy, and they decided to use their political muscle to get what they wanted. So who was their messenger? Simcha Felder. Simcha Felder went, last week we found out, I believe it was last week, Monday or Tuesday, only through a tweet we found out that Simcha Felder was trying to bully the entire state legislature into supporting a bill that would overturn the laws and roll back protections and educational standards for Hasidic children. There's a reason we got wind of that provision in advance. That's because we have powerful allies in the Assembly and apparently in the Senate as well, who wanted to make sure that this gets out, and that's how it was leaked to the media, and we were